All right, so we are in Ephesians chapter 5. And we're going to start in verse 6. My goal is to get to verse 21. But, you know, it's like New Year's resolutions, right? So, all right, so there is some contrast back and forth in chapter 5. You've kind of noticed it. Paul's going through, what they used to be formerly and are now, how they used to walk and how they're walking now. And we're going to see more of that tonight. So that will be a continued kind of idea. And as we looked at the last week, being imitators of God, what that looks like, walking in love, and being that fragrant aroma, as opposed to the immoral side of walking, filthy, silly talk, knowing for certain that, no immoral, impure person or covetous man will inherit the kingdom of God. So that's where we kind of left off, right? Super encouraging. So that was that idea. But we kind of looked at it too, as like there's the correct love in loving God, and then if you looked at what he's talking about is kind of wrong love motivated in the wrong direction, motivated towards self and love of fleshly things. So now we're going to get into some deception. So always fun. All right, let's. Would somebody mind reading for us 6 through 14? 6 through verse 14.
Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Therefore do not be partakers with them, for you were formerly in darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. For the fruit of the light consists in all goodness and righteousness and truth, trying to learn what is pleasing to the Lord. And do not participate in the unfruitful deeds of darkness, but instead even expose them. For it is disgraceful even to speak of these things, which are done by them in secret. But all things become visible when they are exposed by the light. For everything becomes visible as light. For this reason it says, awake, sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you.
Awesome, thank you. There's some really cool stuff here that obviously will tie back into what he's been talking about earlier. Let no one deceive you. What's wrong with deception? Why do you think Paul is worried about deception?
Somebody believe a lie.
To believe a lie, right?
Was there a lot going on at that time?
Oh, yes. So they didn't have Facebook, right? You couldn't Facebook stalk anybody back then. And so, people would show up and say they're claimed to be apostles or claimed to be taught by the apostles, and how would you fact check that, right? So there was that kind of deception. Other deceptions that would have been, you had the Judaizing teachers, those that were trying to blend, Torah law with Christianity. Those don't go together. You also had the Gnostics that were kind of ramping up, that, Christ really didn't come in the flesh, and that you had to kind of divorce yourself from the fleshly body, either on one side indulging in those things, or the other side ascetic living. You got all kinds of different stuff. We could go on and on. It doesn't say here what specifically he's talking about. He's just talking about deception. If you put it in the context of Acts chapter 20, this letter was written after he went and met with the Ephesian elders. Look over at Acts chapter 20, verses 28 through 30. He meets with the elders and talks with them and warns them there about some things. And this may be kind of what he's reminding them of. Verses 28 through 30. Okay. So he says, be on guard for yourselves and for all the flock. This is the job of the elders, right? Among which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers, bishops, elders, to shepherd the church of God, which he purchased with his own blood. I know that after my departure, savage wolves will come in among you, not sparing the flock. And from among your own selves, men will arise, speaking perverse things to draw away the disciples after them, instead of Christ. Therefore, be on the alert. And so it could be that he's reminding them of this, hey, be careful. And he even mentions that from them themselves, some of them are going to come in and try and teach perverse things. It could be a general deception, it could be that, and so we don't know exactly. But he says here, let no one deceive you with, my version says empty. Does anybody else have a different word there? Anybody have vain? Is that another one? It's the same kind of deal. Empty words, basically, if you get a bag and you think there's a lot of good stuff in it, and it's just empty, somebody hands you a bag and says, hey, here's the rest of my lunch, you want it? Oh yeah, thanks. You open it up and there's like 2 French fries in there. Not very helpful, right? Kind of a downer. So this is the idea here, empty words. They are of no use to anybody. And it's because of these things, these empty words, and what he's been talking about earlier, that the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. And we've been talking about the sons of disobedience. We've had the children of light, beloved of God, walking in, and then the other side are sons of disobedience. Anybody who is disobedient to God gets to wear that badge. So, sons of disobedience versus beloved children. Let's look also at Colossians chapter 2, verse 8. Colossians 2, verse 8. It says, see to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception, according to the traditions of men, according to the elementary principles of the world, rather than according to Christ. So this was another warning that he gave to the church in Colossae. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 10. He says, and with all the deception of wickedness for those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth so as to be saved. So they were deceived. And so they're dealing with deception quite a bit in that time period. And it was easy to do that. What was something that would help them with those who might be trying to be deceiving spirits? What were they supposed to do? Were they given anything to help them with that? Teachings, the apostles. Did Christ promise anything would come to help them with that? Spirit. There it is, Spirit. So we have that idea, right, of those as far as being able to discern, and they were able to help in that way as well. So here's this deception. Don't let anybody deceive you. What are they supposed to do? Verses 7 and 8. 7 through 9, really. It says, don't do that, therefore do not be partakers with them. What does it mean to be partakers with them? What's that? Joining in with them. How can we be partakers of those who are trying to deceive others?
By not saying anything.
Oh.
Agreeing with them.
Agreeing with them. If I don't say anything, am I helping their cause?
Yep.
I think so, right? I went to preach I was at preaching school, small congregation that was supporting me, and they just recently hired 2 half-time preachers, because they both had secular jobs. Preached just a standard, straight out of preaching school, Church of Christ 101 kind of sermon. And he took me aside afterward and says, you can't preach that way, and just told me why I couldn't preach that way, and said, don't say anything, I have people here I need to teach. He was basically contradiction. It was a new hermeneutic, this idea of different things. But he said, don't say anything to anybody. I have people here I need to teach. Is that a red flag?
Yep.
Yes, slightly. I went out to the parking lot and called the elders. But anyway, so if we don't do anything, we don't say anything, we can be partakers with them. If we continue that logic, and in this case, I think we'll see if we don't try to correct in any way, if we allow them headway, and it doesn't have to be necessarily confrontational. Sometimes people are deceiving because they just don't know. There are people who are out there who think they have the right answers and are very zealous, but they just don't know that maybe they need to be educated. Who was it in Acts that needed to be educated? Who was a devout man? But Aquila and Priscilla taught him more perfectly the way, right? Apollos. So there are those out there that just need to be educated. And so I think in this case with the word deception, it might be intentional. Yes, sir.
It also says, if you're afraid to mention me in front of others,
then I will be not mention you in front of the Father.
You know, that's something we want to be careful with, right? Yeah, definitely. If we're afraid, in this case, to say anything, even, you know, in Revelation, when it talks about those who are going to burn in a lake of fire, one of the things that are that he mentions is cowardice. Cowards will burn in the lake of fire as well. So not fun. So anyway, things we need to address. Don't be partakers with them. Don't help them in any way. Don't bid them Godspeed in what they're doing. He says, for you were formerly darkness, he's reminding them again, but now you are light. Walk as children of light. Have we seen that before? We have. How does a child of God or child of light walk? Verse 9.
Goodness, righteousness, and truth.
Goodness, righteousness, and truth. That's so nice the Bible tells us how to do things, isn't it? I want you to walk a certain way. Walk as children. Well, what does that look like? Well, goodness, righteousness, and truth. And that's going to be a great litmus test for us. Right? If we're about to do something, is it good, is it righteous, and is it truthful? Can we use that as a litmus test for our activities on a daily basis? I think so. Right? And so if it's good, right, and true, then that's something that will be good. And then verse 10, trying to learn what is pleasing to the Lord. In the context of religion today, is that sometimes the focus of trying to do what's pleasing to God? Not always.
Pleasing
right?
Him.
Pleasing us, right? Sometimes we're the audience. It's what we get out of it. There is this concept of consumer religion. We're consumers, right? We get on the Googles and Amazon, order what we want, and it comes to us. And like, what's the fastest you guys can get stuff out here
3 days.
from Amazon?
Usually 3 if you're lucky.
3?
Yeah.
3, that's pretty good. Okay. I mean, you've got places where we've lived where it's like same-day delivery, right?
Yeah, in Phoenix it is.
Oh yeah. So
In 2 hours.
man, so what is that? What drives that? What drives that type of, why are we trying to get stuff to people so quickly?
To get more.
To get more. It's consumer. So the consumer drives the market, right? That's what's happening in religion in a lot of ways. The consumers, those who are coming, they want all these things. They want programs, they want this, they want this, they want this. So what do churches do? They provide all those programs so that the consumers will come to them. A lot of times those that are looking for congregations, because, I mean, honestly, if you knew nothing about the Bible and you were going to go and try and find a place that says they worship God, how would you know where to go? How would you know? And so what do people do? They go to places where they feel good. Is the environment good? Am I welcomed? Are people awesome? And everything is happy, right? That's good. All right, what are they going to, if they have children, what do they have for my children? What do they have for, what program do they have for, my 20-something-year-old, child, or whatever state of life they're in, right? So that becomes the consumer part of it. What am I getting out of this? Well, where are we going with this, Josh? In the case of being a Christian, it's not about what I'm getting out of it. What has God provided for us? Salvation. He's saved us from so many things. I mean, he's said in this book already that I chose you from the foundation of the world, right? My plan was from the foundation. This has been a long time coming, and we get to see the culmination of that. And so should we not be trying to please God? Or that should be what we're trying to learn how to do. Yes, sir.
What you were saying, that it reminded me of the song we sang Sunday morning about I gave my life for you, what have you given to me?
Yes.
And that should be something on our mind all the time.
Mhm.
What are we giving? We need to give ourselves back to Him.
Yep. Yep. And that's what Paul's telling them here in this church. He said, your focus needs to be trying to learn what's pleasing to the Lord. That should be our focus. He's earned that, I think, right, from us. And so he's telling them how to walk, not to be like they used to be this way. And now he says in verse 11, there's another thing not to participate in. Do not participate in the unfruitful deeds of darkness, but instead expose them. Look over at 1 Corinthians chapter 5. 1 Corinthians 5, beginning of verse 9. He says, I wrote to you in my letter not to associate with immoral people. Okay, great. Is that easy? You're not to associate with any immoral people, ever.
Doesn't mean you never get a job.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not even possible. That's not real. And he quantifies it here. He said, I did not at all mean with immoral people of this world. All right, phew, thank you. I was about to have to move into, some mountain somewhere. He said, or with the covetous or swindles, or with idolaters, for then you would have to go out of the world, is what he's saying. I mean, Paul acknowledges that. You'd have to leave the planet if you were not to have any kind of relation with any immoral person. He said, but actually I wrote to you not to associate with any so-called brother if he is an immoral person, or covetous, or an idolater, or a reviler, or a drunkard, or a swindler, not even to eat with such a one. For what have I to do with judging outsiders? Do you not judge those who are within the church? But those who are outside, God judges. Remove the wicked man from among yourselves. He's quoting there from the Old Testament. So there's the responsibility that we're kind of to help encourage one another to proper way of walking, proper way of life. We're supposed to encourage one another in those areas. But if somebody's obstinate and they're not going to do and live the way they're supposed to, he said, a so-called brother, you need to, stay away from him. But what are we trying to say here? Is it possible we can live in the world, recognize that there's a difference, but make sure that we're not participating in those things? There should be a modicum of difference, right, from us and those who are in the world. Not participating in the unfruitful deeds of darkness. And he says you need to make sure that not even in the church these things don't need to be a part of the church, part of the brethren that are doing these things. If there's a line here, if you're into marking in your Bibles, you don't have to, but he says, do not participate in the unfruitful deeds. And then he says, expose them, referencing to the deeds. And then verse 12, the things. And verse 13, but all things. So these deeds is what he's talking about here in this context, in the immediate context. Don't participate in unfruitful deeds of darkness, but instead do what? Expose them. How do we expose them? Yes, ma'am. Talk to them. Yeah, it could be an education thing, like we said earlier. What else? How do we expose deeds of darkness? Confront people.
Or talk to others, to, other Christian men or something.
Yeah. Exactly. We involve one another as a family aspect, and maybe it's an education thing. But it's interesting, he's saying expose the deeds here.
Talk to the Lord.
Talk to the Lord, but maybe there are things that we need to talk about, but be aware of, as far as things that are going on, maybe in our immediate area. Hey guys, we need to be aware that these things are happening. There's going to be a gay, parade, on such and such date. Maybe we need to not be involved in that. Is that something that we could?
Or just don't go to it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what you're saying is you're exposing that, and you're telling the brethren that, hey, we need to be careful about being wrapped up in that. Did you have a comment?
Well, I was thinking that if you were to approach people, do you want to go to heaven?
Mm-hmm.
Most people are going to say, I do,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you go over into 9 of 1 Corinthians, it shows you that, do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God?
Mm-hmm.
Do not be deceived, neither fornicators, idolaters, or adulterers, nor effeminate, or nor homosexuals, thieves, it goes on and on. But then you can say, such for some of you, that you were washed, but you were sanctified, but you were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, and in the Spirit of our God.
Yep.
So I mean, you could use this to say, I know you want to go to heaven, and you were once this,
Yep.
but you were washed clean. So why do you want to go back to it?
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways we can kind of help address people's errors. And what I find is interesting in this immediate situation, he's talking about exposing the deeds of darkness. Now, it's hard to separate the deeds from the person doing them, right? Especially if they're done dirt cheap, right? So in this case, we need to make sure that we're aware of, I think Byron got that one. But anyway,
So which verse are you quoting?
which one?
The deeds.
I have deeds in my version.
I know works.
And works, or works of darkness.
Works.
Yeah.
Which verse are you reading?
In verse 11. Mhm. So yes, obviously if somebody's doing something wrong, we need to address that. But sometimes it's not just a person. Sometimes there are things that are happening in the community that we need to address. That happened in the Ephesian church, right? You had the uproar with the silversmiths and all that kind of stuff. And so there were things that they had to address. And we're going to see some of those things in just a moment. He will name some things that need to be addressed. But there are deeds of darkness. In the Roman culture, some of the things that were going on weren't shiny, right? We talk about how horrible our culture is now. It wasn't really morally great during the Roman period either. So you had temple prostitution, where part of their worship to their gods was just, normal, just healthy prostitution, right? Just good old prostitution. So that was part of normal, part of life. A husband could go do that and still be married and considered faithful. Yes, sir.
It talks about exposing them, but it uses light.
Yes.
Everything exposed by the light becomes visible, for it is the light that makes everything visible.
Exactly. And we are children of
Light.
light.
And most bad deeds are done in darkness.
Yes, exactly. Well, don't we say that to kids, right?
Yeah.
What, any good things happening at, when do they roll the streets here? Like 10? Right? Pretty much. So we tell kids, what good thing is happening, after 10 or 11 at night, why do you want to go out? Right, so that's a common thing. And he deals with that. Light and darkness has always been a kind of a visible struggle between good and evil. Right, so much so that like in European times, back in the Middle Ages and so on, anybody who was like a night watchman or did anything at night was considered evil because they were in the night, they were in the darkness. And obviously that was not true, but that was their conception of light and dark. In black and white movies, who wore the white hats and who wore the black hats? Okay, so that's something that has always been, partly true. Gary, you had a comment? Okay, so when we go into here, he's talking the same thing, light and dark. What imagery does John tell us in John chapter 1 about Christ? What imagery does he use concerning Christ? You remember? Look over in John chapter 1. John uses this a lot. Jesus even says in one of his I am statements. Beginning verse 9. Okay, there's a lot here. Verse 4, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. What word do you guys have instead of comprehend?
Apprehend.
Apprehend, overcome. Overcome is kind of the idea. So the idea is that his light was shining so bright, darkness could not consume it. It could not put it out. I don't know if you've ever been in a place that was so dark, it felt like, there's no way I'm going to, anything will shine in here. And so that's what it's saying here. The darkness could not put it out, could not snuff it out. Verse 9, there was the true light which was coming from into the world, enlightens every man. And he was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and they didn't receive him. So over and over again, throughout the book of John, he deals with this idea. Jesus says, I am the light of the world. Right? And so even he claims to be that as well. Yes, sir.
And throughout all of Paul's writing, darkness he referenced before we knew Christ.
Exactly, yes.
So, and that's what he's referencing here. Before you knew Christ, don't go back to your darkness.
Yeah.
He mentions that in Romans also, don't go back.
Don't go back to darkness.
More darkness,
Yeah. And that was a temptation because it was hard, right? Being a Christian, especially with such persecution, it was a challenge for them in that time. So a challenge to the point of losing property and life. And so it was difficult, not like what we have now. It is not that blatantly difficult with the things that we struggle with. So expose them. It was disgraceful to even speak about those things. Maybe we should have mentioned that earlier. But anyway, it's disgraceful to even talk about the things that they did. Paul's like, I'm not going to give you a list because I want to write those things down. But we don't need to be partakers, but expose them. And exposing them, is there a way to do it when people receive the information? Right. Love, because the end goal of exposing is to bring people out of darkness into light. If we go in with both barrels blazing, and I'm going to be right and they're going to be wrong, are we winning anything? No, everybody loses in that moment, right? Because the end goal should be that they come out of the light. They want to come out of the light. And so that's a part of that exposure. Yes, sir.
It depends too on what kind of darkness there is, because if you just talk to them about it, how would you like somebody to do that to you? It may open them up.
Yes.
See that they made a mistake.
Yes, yeah. And kind of help empathize, all right, sympathize with the situation. So all those things play a part in doing this. Exposing them is disgraceful. We can talk about it, and if we're going to get through 21, we got to hurry. So he says, for this reason it says, awake, sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. We don't know what it is. We don't know what this is. We don't know what he's quoting from exactly. Isaiah 60 verse 1 is similar to this. So he may be using kind of similar Jewish poetry in saying this. It could have been a song that they had. It could have been number 12 in their songbook that he's quoting from. We don't know. But the people who are receiving this letter, they did know. Right? They did know what he was quoting. And they're like, oh yeah. What's neat about this, there's two things he tells them to do. Two actions equals Christ will shine on you. Awake plus arise equals Christ will shine on you. What am I waking from? What do you think he's talking about? Awake, sleeper.
Your old ways.
What's that?
Your old ways.
Your old ways?
I had a footnote here, it says, careful how we walk. And then the one that, and Christ will shine on you, show you the way.
Yeah. So what time? What's the light situation when we're sleeping? Who likes to sleep with all the lights on? Generally not, right? Generally not. In darkness, we awake from darkness, awake sleeper, and do what? Arise from the dead. Who has allowed us and made it possible for us to arise from the dead? Christ has. Right? We do those things, and what analogy, what happens? Like, what's the spiritual, how do we spiritually arise from the dead?
You're buried in baptism.
Buried in baptism, there it is.
6, 3, and 4 raised.
Yes, it could be that's what he's referring to here, right? Arise from the dead, and then what happens? Christ will shine on you. The origin of the light. Right? That's the origin. That's from God the Father and the Son that shines down. So they are the origins of the light. Therefore, all right, so let's move on. Who would like to read 15 through 21 for us?
Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but wise, making the best use of the time. Because the days are evil, therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. And do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit, addressing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord, making melody to the Lord with your heart, giving thanks always and for everything to God the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ.
All right. A lot here, obviously. So we're talking about how we're supposed to expose the deeds of darkness, walk in light, and in goodness, righteousness, and truth. Therefore, be careful how you walk. There's deception. There's the entanglement of sin out there. Be careful how you walk. If you're not careful, you might be walking down a path and accidentally step on a snake. Right? It can happen. So we got to be careful, right, Kara, about that. So we need to be careful how we walk. Why? What does he say specifically here? Not as what? We have two different things here in verses 15 and 16.
Not being unwise, but wise.
Why, yeah, 15 through 17 rather. Yeah, not unwise, but as wise. What's the difference between walking in wisdom and walking in unwisdom?
You don't
Not
have
a word,
Christ
sorry.
following you, or you're not praying, making sure you're making the right choices.
Yes, so where's the source of our wisdom? Right, where's the source of our wisdom? Is it in ourselves? What did Lyle do? Lyle holds up his Bible back there, right? So we need to get tapped into wisdom and read that, and that be a part of our lives. But wisdom is not knowledge. Is there a difference between knowing a thing and putting it into practice? Very much so, right? Very much so. So I can know something. How many of you have been on the job and a new person shows up that studied how to do this thing, and they know how to do it? Do they really know how to do it?
No.
But they have 0 hours of experience?
No.
Not usually,
No.
right? So in this case, wisdom is applied knowledge. Right? I take knowledge, I put it into action in my life, and that becomes wisdom. When it's God's knowledge, what He's given me, that's what I do. So that's when it's going to work. So I walk in wisdom. If you read the Proverbs, and Solomon's talking to his son over and over and over again. He tells his son, "Don't be this person. Don't be like the fool." So that's a great source for wisdom. Just incidentally, side note, if you want wisdom, read the Proverbs. If you're dealing with heart issues, read the Psalms. If you're just wondering what to read today, those are really good places to start. So wise, making the most of your time. Is that a wise thing to do?
Yep,
Why?
saves idle time.
Saves all the time. Yes, you gotta,
So, the American Standard says redeeming the time.
Yes.
The footnote says buying up the opportunity.
exactly. That's a great way of looking at that, right? And that's what a wise person does. A wise person recognizes their resources, and resources are finite and need to be managed. Time is one of those resources that needs to be managed and needs to be done. Because what can we do? Have you ever wasted time?
Oh, yes.
Have you ever killed it?
Yeah.
All right. So yes, we've done those things. Is it possible for us to get distracted with time? No, never, right? Never. I never get distracted from anything. Right? So yes, it's possible for us to, but he says redeem the time, buy up the time, like was mentioned. Why? Why does he say that?
It's the opportunity that's before you, if you're smart enough to take that opportunity.
Exactly. There's opportunities out there. He says the day is evil. Those days are horrible. Evil. Why are days evil?
If you've got idle time, that evil can creep in.
Yes.
Your way of thinking.
Yeah. How would I translate it in English? There's a phrase. Well, I guess we say it this way in English. Idle hands is the devil's workshop. Is that what we say here?
Idle hands.
Idle hands is the devil's workshop. So, sometimes we just need to be busy, just to keep ourselves out of trouble. But the days are evil because they're short. The days are evil because they're going to come to an end. Right? We don't have all the time in the world. Manage it correctly. Days are evil because the world is not heaven. We don't need to be reminded of that. Yes.
But go along with what Roger said in Colossians 4:5. Conduct yourselves with wisdom toward outsiders, making the most of the opportunity.
Yes. Yeah. And that plays a hand in hand with this, right? Making the most of opportunity.
And it says conduct yourself with wisdom.
Yes. So, I had that written down here. Again, Ephesians and Colossians are great kind of commentaries on one another. They both, he was writing the letters at the same time to these congregations while he was, in prison redeeming the time. We have this idea here for them to be aware of. In this case, he says, don't be foolish, verse 17, but understand. That was, kind of another idea of wise, unwise. Don't be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. If I tie this, what the will of the Lord is, back up to verse 10, to learn what is pleasing to the Lord, does that help me understand this a little bit better?
What are the two great commandments?
What's that?
The 2 great commandments.
What are the 2 great commandments?
Love that God with all our mind and soul, and love our neighbors as ourselves.
Yes, upon these hang all along the prophets, right?
Yeah, since He gives us our commandments, that must be His will.
Exactly. I mean, that's pretty easy. If God says, this is it, do this, I should learn that and practice that. Make the most of your time. Don't be foolish. Understand what the will of the Lord is. And don't get drunk with wine. This is like random. Does this not seem random? Like all of a sudden out of nowhere, and don't get drunk with wine, this train comes in from stage left. Like we're changing subjects all of a sudden. But there is some continuity here. He's dealing with, them in this Greco-Roman society, and wine was everywhere, right? Everywhere. So they're dealing with also the concepts and use of wine. And in this case, he says, don't get drunk with wine, for that is dissipation. Somebody else who read this? Debauchery, yes. The word actually is unsaved-ness. It's a waste. It's a waste. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of, it's an unrestrained, immoral behavior is the idea. Yes?
Well, that's what I was going to say. It lowers your inhibitions.
It does. And what they would practice in that time is they would have these big, extravagant meals, and everybody would be invited to them, and then just all this drinking and everything. And then afterwards, depending on who it was, the after party could get very inappropriate. Totes inappropriate, right? In the after party. So they had to be. So that's what he's talking about here. Don't get drunk with wine, and be involved in those things that those people are involved in, which is for that is dissipation. But be filled with the Spirit. Yes, sir.
The American Standard says, drunken with wine, wherein is riot.
Yes.
Kind of
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Afterwards.
Unrestrained, immoral behavior, right? So yes, and that things can lead to that. I mean, how many times? Yes, we don't have to get into. Everybody understands that, right? We don't have to get into that. But he says, "Be filled with the Spirit." So here's where I think this goes. Don't be a part of those practices of these kind of debauchery meals and extravagance, but be filled with the Spirit and worship together. Does that make more sense now? It's taken me forever to kind of understand, like, why all of a sudden are we talking about not drinking, and then we just go right into worship? Why? Because over here, you can have the type of worship they had in their temples and in their practices. Don't go down the path that starts with, drunkenness. Go down this path and be filled. It's not even the word. So the word drunk here is methusko, to be filled with to the point of drinking. That's not the word he uses here when it says filled with the Spirit. It's the idea of a vessel being filled to the top is what he's talking about. Here being filled with the Spirit. Fill yourself up with this and worship correctly together. Does that make more sense in the context as far as like why we're all of a sudden talking about drinking and then going right into worship? We're just separating ourselves from where we used to be, how we used to act, to how now we as a church work and worship together. And so now when we read this, be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. This is what we're supposed to do, not whatever music they did over there, right, in those parties. This is how we do this. Singing, making melody with your heart to the Lord, always. I like that word there, giving thanks. No, always giving thanks with a grateful heart. Giving thanks for all the things in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ to God, even the Father, and being subject to one another in the fear of Christ. That's great. That's a beautiful kind of end to chapter 5. There's the debauchery and how they worshipped and how they did things and practiced things that generally started with drunkenness. And he says, no, be filled rather with the Spirit and worship God this way. And that's the difference, the former and the current. Yes, ma'am.
In Colossians 3 and verse 9, he uses the analogy of the old man and the new man.
Mm-hmm.
In verse 9 it says, lie not one to another, seeing that you have put off the old man with doing, and have put on the new man that is being renewed unto knowledge after the image of him that created him.
Yes, yeah. That's beautiful. In the Corinthian, or the Colossian letter, he makes it much more beautiful in chapter 3. He even uses the idea of being clothed with Christ, like you're changing garments, taking off the old and putting on, and he does really good there, with true knowledge, right? So there's that wisdom and understanding that would need to be a part of us. And that's what he's trying to get them to understand. Remember, these are people who are trying to change how they've lived for so long. It is not a situation where, here, we're air quote a Christian culture. By that I mean people are aware of Christianity here. In that context, this is completely, again, left field. They've never heard about serving one God, right? And how would you could live all this kind of way. Why would you now have this kind of celibate and, stable lifestyle when, we celebrate the gods this way, right? So you can see how far of a shift it's going to be for them. And people coming out of those lifestyles into the church, it's going to take them a minute, right? To kind of readjust. They're changing a vocabulary, a way of thinking, a way of operating with one another. And so Paul deals with this quite a bit. Former and now, right? Near, far. Okay, so there's those kind of changes in life. Once again, Byron got that one. All right. Any questions, comments, shout-outs? Lyle?
I was thinking if you can, even though I'm trying to phrase this little thing.
All right.
Leave it up to them. You can either go this way, or you can praise God.
Yep.
If you go this way, you can show them and say, hey, you're going to go down here.
Yep.
And if you go this way, you'll go up.
Yep. And that's the best we can do, right? I mean, we're not changing them. Everybody has to make their own decision.
And leave it up to them to see you and but show them.
Yeah, exactly. We need to do our part. Paul said, I'm free of the blood of all men. I did not restrain from sharing you the whole gospel, the whole counsel of God. And we need to be those that do the same thing.